Oh, it doesn't move. Okay, it doesn't move. That's fine. That's okay. Thank you. Well, the time is late. However, I think we'll spend some few minutes to just cap it up, whatever we've been doing this afternoon or this evening. So before I say anything, allow me to again greet all of you and say good evening. Good evening again. Let me begin by thanking this group. And I knew the group more so through Dana Tambo when he started the group and Mr. Kisomo here. And this is noble, so that it's not lost to us what a small group of people can do. I'm a very strong believer that we don't give backwards, we give forward. In starting this group, especially a group of education, one thing that sticks in my mind is that we realize that we have to give forward. We have to give to generations that are coming. The only way we can give forward is to be able to impact these people that are graduating right now. So just by any chance, in our minds, when we see this number of people, and we might be thinking how small a number of a community can come tonight for such a noble thing as this, I want to remind you of just two things. One was said by Lao Tzu. Lao Tzu, many people don't know that that was his quote, but he said, a journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step. This is a journey that has been started. So tonight, perhaps we've not come to bring the community together, but we've come to make the first step. And we've made that first step. Margaret Mead mentioned a very interesting point. And she said, never doubt what a small number of people can do. Indeed, it's the only thing that has changed the world. So this small number of people that we have here today, fast forward 40 years from now, you'll be surprised at the seeds that have been planted here tonight. And so this group that is here is big because behind us and in front of us are multitudes that will be impacted tonight as we stand here. So may God bless us as we come together as a group. And so tonight, I just want to examine a few things for all of us, mostly the graduates, and then the parents as well. And I want to go back and borrow from one of the philosophers that Dan mentioned. Plato was at the same time. It's very interesting. If you go 500 years before Christ, we had a very interesting time in history. We had a group of philosophers that shared the same air. They lived the same time. Plato was one of them. Socrates, Lao Tzu was one of them. Zoroaster was one of them. A good number of them. But Plato made a very interesting statement. And he said, an unexamined life is not worth living. Let me go back again. The graduates, as you go through life, the parents as we go through life, the people who are from in the diaspora from different countries, as we go through life, an unexamined life is not worth living. Therefore, we must ask three questions. Where have I come from? Where am I right now? And where am I going? If those three questions are answered for us, then we live a very different life. Graduates, as you go through this life, ask the question. Examine your life at every given stage. Where have I come from? Where am I right now? Where am I going to? I want to invite us to examine only three things because of time. I grew up raising cows. And my dad would send us to give hay or grass to the cows when it was dry. And very interestingly, one time we went and found just a few number of cows, and we put all the hay, all the grass to the cows. And when we came back, he said, young boys, when you go and find just a few cows, you don't give them all the hay. You just give them some little hay because they are not as many. So I'm not saying that I'm not giving you everything, but I may not pour all my hay tonight. because of the time, and maybe next time we'll pour more. But let me begin by saying this. My parents, especially my mom, challenged me when I was going through school. And I want to challenge you the same way tonight. And my mom always gave me this point in Proverbs 9:10. And she always told me, son, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Very interesting. Graduates, as you come to this point tonight, as you look forward to more graduations for these younger ones going from high school, for those who are in college, going above college, the beginning of wisdom is the fear of the Lord. I didn't understand that until I went back recently, back home, and was very surprised that the most successful people in my community are the kids whose parents were Christians. Not many others that their parents were not believers not survive. Why am I saying this? I'm saying this that the beginning of what we are looking for is to understand the fear of the Lord. If we get that, we'll have made a very huge step. And let me go back. Most of you who are born here may not understand this, but the rest of us will understand this. In my cultural heritage, when I was growing up, there were 3 stones that made the fireplace. Do you have those? What do you call them in Kisi? We call it kapkoima in my language. Amaiga. Those 3 stones, were they all the same size? What was the difference? There you go. 2 of them were actually smaller. There was one bigger one that was the main one. The bigger one did not move. You moved the 2 small ones depending on the size of the sufuria. But the bigger one never moved. And with those 3 stones, if you grew up in the same culture as I did, the fire between the stones never went out. I don't remember it going out. At night, when we went to sleep, that the coals were actually covered under the ash. And in the morning, we'll begin a new fire. Is that so? Now let me take you back to our minds. That was the biggest philosophy of the African understanding of nature and God. I'm working on what is called the Jiko model right now. I'm looking at those 3 stones and going back to say, is there meaning in the 3 stones that the African mind can share with the rest of the world? And this is my finding so far with some friends that we're working on. The bigger stone represented God. That is the higher power in the fireplace. One of the stones represented the community, and the 3rd one represented nature. But my point tonight for you guys is to understand which one did not move. The one that did not move was the bigger stone that represented the higher power. It represented God. As you move every stone that you have in life, I want to ask you that the bigger stone may remain always in your life. If that happens, your life will change in a very different way. Move everything else but the bigger stone in your life. And that is why I know some of you here may not be Christians, but I hope all of us are. But whatever you perceive God to be, allow me to go back to one guy called Max Hay, who wrote the words Desiderata. Many people don't know that, who wrote Desiderata. And I like him for this reason. He said, therefore, be at peace with God, whatever you conceive him to be. Even if you are not Christian, but whatever you conceive God to be at peace with him. And whatever your labors and aspirations in the noisy confusion of life, keep peace with your soul. So graduates and parents who are here, my appeal tonight is whatever you perceive God to be, keep him in the big stone and don't change him. My point number 2 is once we've put God in the place where God belongs as graduates and parents, let me go to the family. When I talk about family, this always makes my ears teary because I understand that whatever we will be in this country, whatever we will make as graduates, whatever you will achieve as graduates, make no mistake about it, it all starts in the family. The success and the magnitude of our impact in this country will be directly proportional to the strength of our families. If our families are weak, we will have weak communities. We will have weak results. And therefore, allow me to go back to these parents and to you guys and ask the question again, have we examined our families? In the diaspora especially. Most of our families are falling apart. And that may mean most of our dreams will fall apart as well. So let's go back as a people and go back and take care of the families. Having said that, there are only 2 things you can inherit from your family. For you guys and for your parents. There are only 2 things you can give these guys. There are only 2 things you can take from your families. Number 1, you can take roots. You can inherit roots from your family. Number 2, you can inherit wings from your family. Let me explain that. The roots are the things that we built you up with. Things that will always hold you. The beliefs that you will have. The things that will always drive you. Those are the roots that we've given you. The beliefs, the faith, the respect that we're talking about. Those are the roots you can inherit from families. Number 2 is you can inherit the wings to fly as far as you want to fly. Your success, though, depends on how the wings and the roots are balanced. Let me invite your mind to go to the kite. If you know how the kite is, if you are balancing a kite and it's not well handled down here, when it hits turbulent winds, what happens? Disappears. But the successful kites are the kites that the string is attached down at the bottom. And even when it hits with the winds, that kite stays in place. These guys you're graduating right now, you will only be successful and be able to survive the turbulent times ahead of you if your roots are clearly rooted in your families. If they are not, you will not survive where you're going to. Number 2, on the same thing. I don't know if some of you have read about the monarch butterflies. The monarch butterflies are very interesting. Most of them are found in the Amazon forest. What is interesting about the monarch butterflies is that they are hatched in a given branch. And most of them will travel several miles away, even 1,000, 2,000. However, when the time comes for them to go back and lay eggs and hatch their young ones, they go back to the same tree. Not only the same tree, they go back to the same branch where they were hatched. Very interesting. But they realize that our success is found in where we came from. You guys, your success will be found in where we've raised you, in these families, in these churches. If you come back here, you will be successful. Number 3, under the same point. When tsunami hit in the ocean in 2009, something very interesting happened. After the water had receded, they found a stone On that stone was written, do not build below this level. And everything else that had been built below that level perished. Hundreds of years ago, the people who lived there understood one thing, that every time there was a tsunami, the water did not go beyond that point. And so they put a stone and they said, do not build below this level. Everything else below that perished. As you've grown, and for the parents, this is more of a challenge for you. Do our kids know what level not to go beyond? Are there things that when these kids are leaving to go to college, they know that in my family, we don't go below this level? Are they clear on that? Do they know, for instance, that I will not do 1, 2, 3 things? Let's even say alcohol, for instance. Do they know that this is below the level of my family? Do they know that if I go below this level, I'll perish? Are they clear on your expectations? You guys, you've grown up in families that you understand what is cherished. Be clear in your mind that I don't go below this level. The water will stop here and I'm not drowning below this level. Are you clear on what you want to make sure you get in the level you have? So this is more for these people and the parents here. Be very clear in your family. Let the kids understand that we don't go below this level. Once they understand that, then you have actually, you have a very interesting thing to do. And then finally on that point, before I continue, I want you to understand that we are only as strong as the weakest one of us. Our success is not measured by the person who has succeeded the most among us, but rather by the weakest one and the least successful person among us. Why am I saying that? I'm saying this to say, pull together. These graduates that we are here today, I want you to always look after each other and ask yourselves, where is so-and-so that I graduated with? Where is so-and-so that I did this with? These parents who are here, we forget the potential that we have when we come together as a unit. I always laugh about this. I've never shared this with you. Time is long past in Arlington for us to send a state representative to the House in Texas. We have the numbers. The problem is we don't realize the value and the power of the numbers we have. Anybody standing today here will take the seat and go to the state House to represent us. But what's the problem? We don't realize that we can do it. Why? Because we don't realize the power that lies in the numbers that we have. I want to ask you guys as you go together, and these parents, let's pull together. In fact, as I say that, I'm reminded of the Second World War. In the Second World War, the survival unit was the pair. Most people who survived were not alone in isolation. There was somebody they were with. In cooperation, they survived. But in isolation, they did not survive. But guess what we do? We want to survive alone. We are envious about our successes in different places. There is malice and envy around us. The formula of success for us as parents here tonight, as family, will be cooperation, not isolation. If we can do that, these people will come up tomorrow and realize that we were only successful because of what she said, because the village took up the responsibility of raising us. The village should not only raise the kids, the village should also tap into the resources that we have. But we have failed to do that. As we look back and ask the question where we've come from, I want us to also ask, what can we use from where we've come from? And what can we apply that as we go forward? Very quickly as I go towards finishing up, is finally, let me look at, not finally, but just almost finishing. Let me look at our dreams. You guys, the lawyer mentioned this very well. The sky is below the limit. In fact, has been since the Apollo 1 and went up and came back. So we've conquered that. But I want us to look at the dreams that we have. Let me, before that, as I look at those dreams, let me go to the Bible real quick and just reference something. In the book of Mark, we are 10:46 to 52. I'll not read all of it. This is a story of Jesus in Jericho. And this is a story of Bartimaeus, or Bartimaeus for those who read English, Swahili. When Jesus had come with his disciples, this was a blind guy, and he heard that Jesus was around. He had been blind. And he tried to actually reach and ask for them to take him to Jesus. And everybody was rebuking him and telling him to be quiet. Because of the commotion, finally Jesus said, bring him, let him come. I want you to pay attention to this before I say a few points I want to say on this. Then Jesus stopped and said, call him. So they called the blind man, and when he had come, throwing his cloak aside, he jumped to his feet and came to Jesus. I want you to note this very carefully. This is the question that Christ asked him. Jesus asked, what do you want me to do for you? Very, 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 very interesting question. He asked him, what do you want me to do for you? And this is what he answered, Rabbi, I want to see. And he gained his sight. I asked this, or I say this to say that, are we clear on what we want? Do we know what we want? Many times when we don't know what we want, we get everything and it's okay. Let me take some of these older people back to Kenya, for those of you who are born here. Back in the day, in the 80s, when 70s, 80s mostly and 90s, when Moi was the president, those of you remember that. A lot of people went to Moi to get what? Money and handouts. Moi was very interesting. He always asked, what can I do for you? This was the standard answer for a lot of people. They'd say, Mzee, whatever you can do for me. That was exactly what most people answered. Mzee, whatever you can do for me. In most cases, they came back with 20,000 or 10,000 shillings. And they were so jubilant that they had been given something by the president. Other people were smarter than that. They first of all did their homework, and they said, we need to get a school started. We need to get a school bus bought. We need to get a new district in our area. We need to divide up Nyamira or Kisii into two. And when they went to the president and the question was asked, what do you want? They said, Mzee, we want a district. And they got the district. Or they got a school. The other guys got 10,000 shillings. Why? Because these other guys knew what they wanted and asked for it. The other guys that said, whatever you can give me, some of them came back with 5,000 shillings. Not enough for a meal for a month. I'm saying this to say, be very clear on what you want. Know very well what you want and go for it. So that when someone asks, what do I do for you, you are clear in your mind what you want to be done for. It's painful to see a good number of us doing the same jobs over and over again, manual jobs. Settling down for lesser things, mediocre lives. Why? Because we cannot dare to dream or to try. If only we can try, things will be different. Don't be cowards. Cowards live longer, but they die so many times. Every time something happens, they're dead before they wake up the following day. So what else can I do? We live very mediocre lives. I want us guys to rise up and pave the way for these guys. And realize, I don't want you to also live a mediocre life as a parent. If you have to go to school, get up and go to school. This is not about age. This can be done anywhere at any time. If you have to do a business, get up and do the business. It is fine to fail. That's okay. Try on a jacket. If it doesn't fit you, get another jacket and try it on. But you've tried it on at least. I don't blame you for trying. I will blame you for not trying it. Having said that, then I want you guys to dare to follow what you want to dream. As it's been said before, and he mentioned that, the worst tragedy that can befall a human being is not that they did not achieve their dreams, but that they came to the end of life and realized they did not have any dreams to begin with. So go for your dreams. Dare to dream. Dare to dream. Have an understanding that I'm going to do this. I owe this to myself. I owe this to my community. And having said that, I want to say for the young ones who are here and the graduates, seek ye first the kingdom of God. But secondly, seek ye the kingdom of education. That kingdom of education will level the ground. Obama was a president only because he went to school. Most of us here are standing today, not because our parents had any money to send us here, but because education brought us here. Education will open doors. And that is why when I hear people thinking education is expensive, I'm reminded of what has been said before. If you think education is expensive, try ignorance. Ignorance is more expensive. Ignorance will make you settle down for a mediocre job because you fear to try next door. Ignorance will perceive in your mind that that door is locked and you will never open it. Only if you are educated to know that the handle is supposed to be turned down, the door is open. Ignorance will kill you in a house because you don't know how to turn on the AC unit. And the AC, the power is in the house. And the unit runs. But it's just been set at a different level. And you cannot turn it on. If you think education is expensive, try ignorance. It's more expensive. And so I want you guys to think afresh and go back in your minds and say, as I graduate, what does that mean? What is the level that I want to go to? Am I clear on that? Ask, what do you want? And go for it. The Chinese had a very interesting proverb, they still do. If you're planning for a year, plant corn or rice. In fact, if you're planning for 3 months, plant emboga or managu. If you're planning for 3 months. And then if you're planning for a year, plant corn or rice. If you're planning for a decade, plant trees. If you're planning for a lifetime, go to school. If you're planning for a lifetime, go to school. And if you're planning for 10 years, plant a tree. You'll harvest it in 10 years. So have your mind clear on what you want. And as you do that, as you go to different places, I always get worked up when I see how we do things in a half-hearted way. Be deliberate in whatever you do. In fact, it was Martin Luther King Jr. that mentioned this, and I'll quote him. He said, if a man or a woman is called to be a street sweeper, he should sweep the streets even as Michelangelo painted, or Beethoven composed music, or Shakespeare wrote poetry. He or she should sweep streets so well that all the hosts of heaven and earth will pause to say, here lived a great street sweeper who did his job well. When you're called upon to be a student, do it so well that the school will say, there came a student that scored everything that we had in this school. If you've been called to be a nurse, do it very well that patients can say, there came a nurse from whom I was able to stand. You've been called to be a lawyer, do it so well that the streets of law, people can say there lived a lawyer that actually made a difference. An engineer, sweep the streets well. Sweep them well. That somebody can say, there came upon a man or a woman in this life that made a difference. When all of us have passed by here, what will be left for us to be remembered for? Can someone say, there came a church that was planted here called the Metro SDA that made a difference in our lives? When we are called upon to sweep the streets, let's do it very well, that people will know there was a sweeper that stopped by this place and swept the streets very well. And finally, because our time is gone, all the things I've said can only be done in the now of your life. Let me address now before I sit down very quickly. We've been running around all this for a while. Students understand this very well. And parents understand it as well. There's only one time in your life. That time is now. So I like your testimony. When the time came, even when there was a kid and you did not have the money, you understood that the time to go to school was now, that moment, not tomorrow. Whatever we've said here tonight, the time to do that is now. There is no tomorrow, there's no yesterday. Your energy can only be expended in the now of your life. And that is why sometimes it's hard for us, because we want to live in Kenya and live in the US. We cannot. Yes, we can invest in Kenya, but your life experience has to be lived here. If it's not lived here, you will shortchange yourself from this life, I promise you. Why? Because you only have one time, which is now. This Saturday, those of you who went to church, or those of you who did not go to church, this Saturday was spent in the US at Arlington or in Arlington, nowhere else. Yet your mind could have been spent in Nyamira. And you lost this here. And neither did you do anything in Kenya. Why? Because there's only one time. I want you to understand that when the time has come, whatever we've said tonight here should be done right now, not tomorrow. That is where your power lies. To say, I'm going to do it now, and I get up and do. I'll close by a story that was told by Leo Tolstoy. Leo Tolstoy is a Russian writer, a very good writer. And I'll close by that story. Leo Tolstoy wrote a story of 3 questions. This story, it's a short story of a king who wanted to become a successful ruler. He thought that he could become a better ruler if he knew the right time to begin anything. That was question number 1. Number 2, who were the right people to advise him? Number 2. And number 3, what was the most important thing to do? So what was the time to begin something? Who were the people he would have? And he declared a reward for the people who gave him satisfying answers. Many people came, and all the answers given by them were different. The king was not at all satisfied. He went to a wise hermit seeking answers. The hermit was digging ground when the king reached there. He repeated his questions several times, but the hermit did not answer. The king he repeated his questions several times, but the hermit did not answer. The king, after a while, helped the hermit in digging, because the hermit was digging. Then they saw a stranger who was badly wounded running towards them. The king nursed him and bandaged his wounds. Later that day, the man told the king that he was the king's enemy who had come to kill him. When the man had come to kill the king saw Joshua hiding, actually wounded him. And he ran towards where the king and the hermit were, but the king nursed him. As the king saved his life, the man wanted to become his servant. Then the king repeated the same questions to the hermit before he left. And the hermit said to the king, "You've already been answered." He said that there's only one time that is important to you now. That was the answer for the king. Your most important time is now. The most important person is the one whom is currently with you. The most important person is the person who's currently with you. And the most important thing is to do good to the people around you. 3 things. The most important time that you have is right now. The most important people are these people that are here. That is why I said, as mostly Kenyans or from Africa here, we've not realized that the most important people we have are these people that we live with right now here. And we can tap into them. And the most important thing is to do good to those people. So then, graduates and parents, the time is now, and the most important people to do these 2 are the people that we have right now. And I close by asking this: if you don't do it right now, when will you do it? If you don't do it here, where will you do it? If it's not done by you, who will do it? May God bless you as you look at the future.